We continue our journey through the amazingly relevant book of Habakkuk. We've already seen the anguish of the prophet Habakkuk as he observed unprecedented sin, rebellion, idolatry, immorality among the Jews of the southern kingdom of Judah. He cried out to God, asking, "Why? How long?" We realize that in our present circumstances, we can relate. That resembles the climate that we encounter on a daily basis, and perhaps we ask why and how long. When Habakkuk cried out to God, the Lord told him that he, God, had a plan to raise up the Chaldeans, also called the Babylonians, to bring discipline on the Jews. Well, this plan further frustrated Habakkuk because he knew that God is a just God. So how could he raise up a nation that was even more evil than Judah to discipline Judah? Sunday, we moved into chapter 2, in which God reassures Habakkuk to trust him, to live by faith. Indeed, good will prevail. The wickedness of the Babylonians will ultimately be punished. Wickedness that God ascribes to the proud. This reassurance came in the form of an emphatic and strangely poetic prophecy aimed directly at the Babylonians. Emphatic because a recurring word in the prophecy is woe. Poetic because the form of the prophecy is much like the stanzas of a poem or song. That word woe is an exclamation of impending disaster. Look out! Or someone mad at you might say, watch yourself. In this second chapter, we find 5 woes to the proud. Let's quickly take a look at them. The first woe we find in verse 6. Woe to him who increases what is not his. The Babylonians were infamous for their desire to take over the world and to enjoy the plunder of their victims. Woe unto them. The second woe is in verse 9. Woe to him who covets evil gain for his house, that he may set his nest on high. It's like, look at us. See how awesome and impenetrable we are? Can't touch this. The Babylonians had climbed to the top. They were stepping on their victims as they went. The third woe is in verse 12. Woe to him who builds a town with bloodshed, who establishes a city by iniquity. The Babylonian oppression of others, including Judah, was fueled by hate and cruelty and bloodshed. Next, we look to verse 15. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbor, pressing him to your bottle, even to make him drunk, that you may look on his nakedness. The Babylonians, who were infamous for their love of strong drink, were not only cruel, they were immensely immoral. And this woe gives us a picture of a people who would get their victims drunk in order to take advantage of them. And the fifth woe, verse 19. Woe to him who says to wood, awake, to silent stone, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, yet in it there is no breath at all. Look where these characteristics of the proud culminate. This is a description of idolatry. The Babylonians, like the Jews, and like so many others before and since, had created gods for themselves. Look at the poetic language. Who says to the wood, awake, to silent stone, arise. These pieces of wood, these pieces of rock that had been carved out into some ornate object, and now the people would say, arise, teach us. But there is no breath in an idol. There is no life in a God that humans create. Well, for each of these woes, the prophecy continued with a description of the eventual outcome. And in each case, the eventual outcome was judgment on evil and victory for those who were victims. Two things we should take from this. First, live by faith. Trust the Lord. Righteousness will prevail in the end. And second, let's pay attention to the 5 woes and make sure that we don't get lured into that kind of attitude or behavior. The last thing we need to be saying is, woe is me. God bless you, friends.